Chapter 16, Teaching Theory and Instructional Techniques.
All NAUI leaders instruct divers, whether in the role of primary or sole instructor, or by assisting a mid-class, conducting diving excursions, or guest teaching segments of certification courses. A diving leader's behavior and perceived attitudes are also profound instructional tools. In psychology, learning is defined as an identifiable, observable change in an individual's behavior or attitude that is the result of either outside stimulation or the resynthesis of previously acquired information. NAUI has defined it succinctly as a change in behavior based on experience. In 1956, Bloom headed a group of behavioral psychologists who developed a learning-teaching taxonomy that identified 3 overlapping domains of intellectual behavior important in the learning process. The domains were identified as the cognitive, knowledge, affective, attitude, and psychomotor, physical skills. The primary purpose of NAUI leadership and instructor training is to produce new members who have learned to lead and teach, thereby providing the basis by which graduates can effectively lead any dive activity or teach any subject in which they have experience and competence. Skill evaluations, review of workbook assignments, and written tests are integral to the training process and are fundamental tools used to achieve overlearning, the concept underlying NAUI's training system. Overlearning is rooted in the observation that the complex physical skills and diverse ideas of diving knowledge are best acquired by students who learn, practice, and develop techniques over time, and then continue to use and expand their knowledge throughout their training. Final written exams should be reviewed, and students who were unable to pass should receive a review of the subject areas in which they are weak, rather than of the exam items answered incorrectly, because they will need to retest in order to graduate. Published minimum standards aid the evaluation process by providing students a concrete performance benchmark and a guide for instructors to use in making certification decisions. Though minimum standards exist to clarify basic, essential course goals and set certification requirements, NAUI's most enduring standard is our members' commitment to excellence. In 2010, NAUI introduced its e-learning product platform, ILM, that delivers the academic content of its courses over the Internet with an interactive design available in over 60 languages, providing immediate performance feedback and high-definition full-screen video. NAUI e-learning is able to enroll students, track their training progress, maintain records, and ultimately register them as graduates. Virtually everything is accessible 24/7 to both student and instructor retailer via the cloud provided by NAUI servers. The e-learning system was designed to preserve the direct and primary relationship between NAUI's members, affiliated retailers, and their students' customers. The profile that they create upon enrolling requires that they identify a NAUI Dive Center trainer to access course content. The e-learning system increases the students' knowledge and course enjoyment. Combined with the quality skills training they receive in confined and open water, e-learning is a powerful tool promoting dive safety through education. The most important person in any diving class is the student, just as divers are the most important participants at any dive event. Each individual learns differently, but all learning activities do have certain common factors. Readiness. Students will learn best when physically and mentally ready. Primacy. First learned is best remembered. A lesson or skill should be taught correctly the first time. Exercise. Skills are only truly learned through participation and practice. Learning, whether it is primarily attitude, skills, or knowledge, will be strengthened by repetition. When primarily teaching a physical skill and depending on its complexity, a sequence of motions must be performed correctly many times, perhaps hundreds of times, before the muscles learn to perform them automatically and properly upon demand. This learning is referred to as kinesthetic awareness. Effect. The best learning is real and useful, and thereby satisfying to the student. Students who know that what they are learning enables them to do something tangible, such as solve a problem or perform a task they want to accomplish, will retain more and be more motivated to progress. Recency. That which is most recently learned is more easily recalled. Leaders and teachers need to develop their oral communication skills and become effective public speakers to achieve success. Whether you are using a lesson plan provided in the NAUI instructor guides or one you have modified or created, review it and ensure that you are completely familiar with the material and its organization. Preparing to communicate is also about getting yourself and the facility ready. Start on time. Consistently starting on time will reduce tardiness because people begin to expect it, and your timeliness will reinforce their expectations. Try to avoid hackneyed opening lines like, "Tonight I'd like to talk about." Look in the NAUI instructor guides in instructor notes under Gaining Attention in the lesson guides for some sample openers. Another common mistake to avoid is making excuses or drawing attention to something by apologizing for it. Chances are the audience never would have noticed your error if you hadn't said something. Effective speakers use their voices in different ways to gain and maintain attention. They understand the 3 P's. These are pitch, pace, and pause, and all can be used for dramatic effect. Pitch or tone is important because if we don't vary it during a presentation, we will be heard as a dreaded monotone. The pace of a presentation is important. Students must be able to process what is being presented and take notes on key points, so too fast a pace can be counterproductive. Pauses. When you ask students a question during a lesson, wait a few seconds to allow all the students to form an answer and then call on someone for the answer. And as always, profanity is always inappropriate in a professional presentation and should be avoided. Regularly asking questions about the subject of the presentation is also a good way to get and keep students involved in the lesson. Establishing and developing rapport with your students is an ongoing process involving subtle efforts. Don't be afraid to insert a little humor into your lessons. However, in most cases, unless humor is related to the subject, it becomes gratuitous and contravening. Eye contact with your audience cannot be overemphasized. Not only is eye contact a critical rapport-building factor, it also provides immediate feedback and helps you to maintain control of students. Publicly praising your students' performance will also build rapport. Conversely, when you must discipline or chastise someone, it is better done privately. Be honest with your audience and answer their questions. If you do not know an answer to a student's question, admit it. Promise to research it and be sure to follow through at the first opportunity. Be respectful of your students' time and commitments. You owe it to them to be organized and well prepared and to start and finish on time. Open and effective communication is a foremost factor in learning and a key to an enjoyable learning experience. In a classroom setting, the most effective teaching communication combines showing and explaining. Training aids are primarily used to reinforce a point and can increase retention of material presented, clarify abstract concepts, and foster higher levels of class participation and interest. Training aids work by increasing the intensity of the experience for participants. These are general tips that apply to all types of training aids so that when you use them, they help improve the intensity of your presentation. If it is a projected aid and you have finished using it, turn it off. Erase the chalkboard or whiteboard when moving on to a new topic and the note-taking is finished. When you've finished using a training aid, remove it from view. When you rehearse your presentation, be sure to practice with your training aids in a full dress rehearsal. It's better to discover that something doesn't work when no one is watching than trying to recover from it in the middle of a presentation. Empathy, the ability to experience the feelings of another person and to see and hear from their perspective, is another important quality of the effective instructor. Establishing reasonable goals is essential to creating an atmosphere that is conducive to learning. Appropriate goals present a level of difficulty sufficient to challenge students while simultaneously allowing them to succeed at the first try. a fine balance. All goals should help all able students achieve to the level of NAUI certification standards and all divers to safe and enjoyable dives. Learning is more permanent when it is reinforced. In order for learning to occur continuously throughout a training session, each skill and topic should be introduced by building upon prior acquisition of prerequisites. Pool or confined water training should be planned to maximize practice and minimize talk. Monitor all students carefully, especially for cold and dehydration. Cold, uncomfortable students do not learn easily, but one of the things they do learn is that diving is cold and uncomfortable. Fostering a sense of relaxation and efficiency in the water is really the fundamental issue when teaching people to dive. The mechanics of water class management are dictated by two considerations: safety and communication. A poorly arranged water class conducted in a haphazard fashion stands little chance of achieving an optimal learning environment, nor does it effectively reduce risk. There are many teacher-student formations that can be effective. Lineup, with students in a line and the instructor facing them in front, is a common formation to start classes, developing into a more informal atmosphere as time proceeds. Utilizing a corner in a swimming pool with a class lining two sides and forming a V with the instructor facing the group is also common and provides optimum group control. Semicircular, with students half surrounding the instructor, creates a feeling of togetherness and sharing. Instructor-centered, with instructor surrounded on all sides, is a good method used by talented communicators, but beware of keeping your back to the same people for more than brief moments. Instructor as part of a circle, with the instructor integrated into the circle, has a less intimidating effect on students. Freeform, with no lineup or ordering of students or instructor, provides great personal rapport with the class, yielding a kind of clinic feel instead of a class orientation. Note that there are inherent limitations to this method unless the instructor is familiar with the group and its abilities. NAUI certified scuba divers must demonstrate the ability to swim and also to sustain themselves at the surface with a survival floating, swimming, or water treading technique. Conversely, non-swimmers should not be certified as skin or scuba divers. There are 4 basic strokes called the crawl, breaststroke, elementary back, and side stroke. To qualify for certification, a prospective NAUI diver must demonstrate forward movement using any basic stroke or a combination thereof for a set number of stroke cycles. The crawl stroke combines an alternating overarm stroke with a multi-beat flutter kick. The breaststroke can be used as a resting or survival stroke. The elementary backstroke is also used for resting or as a survival stroke. To minimize frontal resistance during the arm stroke and maximize efficiency, swimmers should keep their heads back, bodies horizontal, and hands close to the body during the arm recovery. The side stroke is also considered a good survival swimming technique with very little frontal resistance and a lengthy glide. Effective communication can only take place when students are comfortable, secure, and eager. Cold, sun, waves, and wind are environmental concerns in open water. Shallow depths for beginning students tend to reduce anxiety levels, as do close buddy contact and ample staff. With adequate supervision, contact, and control as criteria, there are a number of ways to take a class underwater. Follow Me, with the instructor leading, allows the guiding of a class through situations or illustrations underwater. Call Down, with the instructor on the bottom issuing signals, works well in the beginning stages of training in clear water with adequate surface assistance. Class First, with the instructor following, allows observation from the rear but requires qualified assistance at the head of the group and a carefully chosen site. Instructor First, calling entire class down at once, permits the instructor to see the entire class or a singled-out student in a more natural environment. Instructor and buddy pairs in turn, used for skill evaluations while assistants run non-graded surface drills or games. Progression is a system by which the learner is led through sequential tasks that act as building blocks for one another. No matter what their beginning level, learners will most easily progress by moving from the known to the unknown and from the simple to the complex. In the early stages of a diving training program, progressions should be small in scale, easily covered, and well-defined in logical, sequential stages. This will permit rapid progress, and by continually presenting attainable objectives, will ensure success. Determining the proper corrective exercise is not always so simple. First, the problem, or the skill deficiency that is its root, must be isolated. It is always insufficient to tell the student the problem when correcting motor behavior. Rather than telling the students what not to do, effective instructors and leadership staff help learners discover an efficient alternative. Say, do this, rather than don't do that. Skills are most easily learned by seeing them performed and then performing them in guided practice with active, prescriptive coaching. Once acquired, skills are remembered through a largely unconscious kinesthetic awareness, a memory even more durable than the factual memory. An old but true homily says, I hear, I forget. I see, I remember. I do, I understand. Though skills can certainly be learned through trial and error experiments, this is slow at best, and in a sport like diving, unnecessarily risky. Seeing correct movement patterns first not only helps students learn to perform properly more quickly, but also minimizes the problem caused by trying to unlearn bad habits. Inefficient skills have no chance to develop. Better learning is also assured when practice and coaching directly follow good demonstrations by the instructor or staff personnel. It should be clear by now that diving mentors need to demonstrate high degrees of personal skill development to their charges. All NAUI members should be notable for their water skills. Given the precepts referred to in the laws of learning, bad demonstrations may be worse than no demonstrations at all, though either will obviously stand in the way of student progress. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Being prepared, organized, and in control increases instructor confidence and student safety. These are the first casualties of instructors teaching without a comprehensive lesson plan. The acronym TOM I PASTA was developed early on by military trainers and used to recall the necessary components of a complete lesson plan. It stands for Title, Objectives, Main Points, Introduction, Presentation, Application, Summary, Test, and Assignment. Reviewing the lesson outlines in the current NAUI instructor guides reveals a similarity to this traditional approach, and also that most of the lesson preparation work is already complete. The lesson plan components that are included in each unit of NAUI instructor guides in the instructor notes pages are instructor materials, introduction, attention step, importance or value, main points, student materials and conduct, statement of student performance, body, review, restate student performance, ask questions, and assignment. In 1962, Robert Mager published Preparing Instructional Objectives. He subdivided an instructional objective into three components: the performance, the conditions under which the performance will take place, and the standard that the performer will be required to achieve. A simple example for a scuba diving-related lesson objective is, given the components of scuba and following a demonstration, students will correctly assemble their scuba and determine that it is properly functioning without prompting by the instructor. The conditions of the objective include what the students use to perform, scuba components, as well as when they are to perform, following a demonstration. The performance to be observed is to assemble their scuba and determine it is properly functioning. The standard is correctly and properly, which implies without error, and specifically without prompting. Therefore, if the instructor or assistant must correct the student or intervene with assistance, they have not yet learned according to requirement as set forth by the lesson objective. NAUI instructor guides provide one element of lesson objectives for all phases of training in a particular course as statements of student performance. Almost all of the work and drudgery of lesson preparation and establishing objectives for the core instructional courses has been completed and is available to be fine-tuned for the needs of dive centers, NAUI leaders, and most importantly, the students. To prepare lessons from scratch, please review the information found in Chapter 16 of the textbook. NAUI leaders must determine the conditions and standard to which they will require their students to perform. They also have an obligation to inform the students of any higher standard of performance that they may require. All NAUI leaders use some form of teaching in their activities. Understanding and applying theories and tools can help foster NAUI's goals of safety and environmental protection through education. Every NAUI member's most significant teaching tool is the concerned, skillful, professional image they project and their personal enthusiasm for aquatic activity. Students and divers will invariably respond well to such a leader's concern and support.